Hey there, writer rebels. Want to know my #1 tip for improving your personal writing process? Well, join me today as I talk about it and 4 reasons why it's useful. Hey there, everyone. It's me, Scarlett Kol, young adult author of dystopian, paranormal, and fairy tale fantasy novels, as well as a YouTuber and storyteller. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel, and if it's your first time here, hopefully you like what you see. Anyhow, I have one simple tip for you to improve your writing process. And it's something that anybody can do, and it's very useful for those people who are just starting out and those people who've been doing it for a very long time. It's something you might already be doing already, but you might not totally understand or be getting the full benefit of what you're doing. So, what is my #1 tip? Journals, pieces of paper. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It could be a beautiful $200 planner, or it could be the back of a napkin or a paper grocery bag. It doesn't really matter. The whole thing is about collecting data and using data. As I'm an accountant during the day, obviously data is super important for the job that I do, and I love digging into my data, but there's a lot of people who are more on the creative side of their author business and don't really dive into the data that makes sense for them. So a cardinal rule on improving any process is knowing how that process works. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to remind you, if you are not a subscriber to this channel but like my content and would like to see more of me, make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and notification bell below this video. If you are a subscriber, make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button too, so that YouTube knows that this is a video worth watching. The more exposure that my channel gets, the more that I can produce for you guys. So hopefully you will be willing to hit those buttons below this video and let YouTube know that I am somebody to watch. Okay, so like I said, the best way to improve a process is to know what a process is. So how do you figure out what your writing process is? Well, you need to document it. Just like they suggest when you have weight loss, or if you are trying to have a fitness goal of some sort, or even an investing goal if you wanted to consider this in terms of money, is to record what you're doing. If it's weight loss, record what you're eating. If you're trying to get out of debt, record what you're spending. So being able to do that, you're able to see patterns in the data that you have collected. So in this particular instance, you can keep things very simple. Maybe you could put a journal or a piece of paper by your bed and you just write down what you've done during the day. If you want to be really specific, you could write down every time you are writing as you're doing it. If you are a word sprint person, I know not everybody is into word sprints, which is cool, but if you are a word sprint person, writing down all of your sprints. When did they occur? How long were they? These are all going to give you different data sets. And depending on how long you do it and how well you are documenting it, you are going to have so much more information to work with. The other reason to do this is to do it over time. Yes, it's great to have information for a week or a couple of weeks. And if you watched my video where I talked about word sprints, you can take that data and figure out what your average is per hour and all that wonderful stuff. So I did talk about that a lot already, so I'm not going to get into it too much, and that's really specific to those people who like to word sprint. But if you have that sort of data, you can start to set goals, plans, and figure out how to get your books to market as quick as you can. So obviously not everybody's a fast writer, and that's totally okay. But if you are going to be a self-published author or even a traditional author, you need to know how long it takes you to produce a product at the quality of which you are accustomed to which you are willing to put your name on. So to do that, you need to know how long it actually takes you to do these things. If you're a first-time author, you're not gonna know that the first go around, but if you collect your data while you're writing, then you're going to be able to figure it out for book 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Plus, as you're going through that process, you're gonna be able to collect that data as well, and you are going to be able to see certain patterns over your writing process. Because even though every single book is different and some books take me longer or less time, there is definitely some constants that will stay the same throughout my entire writing process. So the depth of the information that you need to collect will totally depend on the information that you want to get out of it. But as I discussed the 4 benefits of why you should document your writing process, you'll be able to see how in depth you really need to go. Okay, so number one, the first thing you can figure out about your writing process is figuring out what time of day writer you are. There's a lot of people who are night owls, morning writers, afternoon writers, whatever. And sometimes you know this instinctively. I like to stay up late, so I'm a night writer. But you may be very, very surprised if you're writing at different times of day where your word counts are coming in. For me in particular, I like to write in the morning because I feel fresh in the morning. However, when I clock my word sprints and I document that data, I actually get way more words done in the afternoon than when I'm writing in the morning. From 1 till 3, even if I haven't started writing in the morning and I start right at 1 o'clock, I typically write more words between 1 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, even though I feel fresher in the morning, or if it's later in the evening, I'm just released from everything during the day. You would think that I would write more words. I don't. I write my best between 1 to 3 in the afternoon. And this isn't something I would have known without documenting that information. So just because you feel like writing at a particular time of day, there are different types of day where you're more efficient. And if you can work your schedule around it, then you might be more efficient in the long run. In my particular situation, I work a day job, so this does not really work for me. Obviously on weekends that does help, but if I do take a day off, I know to try and get clerical things done in the morning and focus on the writing in the afternoon. The second benefit of it is to find out what time of year a writer you are. So some people write consistently over the year and that's totally fine. But sometimes people are better at writing during certain times of the year depending on their personal situation and just kind of how their life works. For instance, I know that I put out the most amount of words in July, sometimes August, but generally in July. When I was looking at this data, I was trying to figure out why in the summer months was I doing better. You would think that this is not the time of year that I should be writing more since it's so nice outside and I probably want to, take more time off. My kids are out of school. You would think that would be worse for me. But in my particular situation, I have a very busy year and an audit that goes from about March to June. So my brain is very much tied up for those months and kind of stressed, to be honest with you. So at the end of June, middle of June, I'm starting to come down from that. So that my creativity is bubbling up and I probably want to start writing more. Also, my husband travels more during the summer, so I have more time to myself, as well as with my kids being off school. And typically, when it's not during a pandemic, I do work out of the home. So I will be up and getting ready for work and doing all of those things while everyone's still asleep. So I have generally several hours during the day where I can just think for myself. So that definitely helps my productivity. Plus, in July, I walk a lot more, it's nicer outside, and I do like to dictate. So I have a chance of dictating and getting more words down instead of having to sit in front of a computer and being tied to that. So I usually produce way more in July. Maybe you produce more in December because you get a few weeks off around Christmas time. Maybe you're better in September because your kids are going back to school and you have more of a routine. But when you are looking at your writing process and trying to figure out your plans for the year, you can try and focus around those areas where you know you're going to write a little bit more and take it easy on the areas that you don't write a whole lot because it's busy for you and it's stressful. If you take a look at your writing over an entire year, for me, I don't write a lot in March and April. So when I set my plans, I usually try to keep March and April pretty writer-free or give myself a longer time to write whatever book it is that I'm working on during that time period because I know I'm not gonna get stuff done. And if I don't, I'm just gonna stress myself out even more when I'm already stressed at work. So knowing your peaks and valleys throughout the year of when you write will be very useful in terms of your writer production. Number 3, this is on where you can concentrate your efforts. So if you're writing down, okay, I outlined today, and then you're logging, I wrote today for an hour, and then you're writing all of those things down, and then I'm editing, and this is how long it's taking me. You can take a look at how long it's taking you to put a book together. I know that there's this big thing out there where people are saying, oh, people are writing super fast, and if they write super fast, they're not putting out good quality. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I took several years to write my first book. Did I write every day? No. And if I logged the time that I was actually physically writing, it definitely did not add up to a year's worth of time. So just because somebody can take, let's say it takes me 100 hours to write a book, 100 hours, if you were writing 10 hours a day, is only 10 days. So depending on how you are writing and where you have time to do it, you can make yourself a little bit more productive by putting it in the more productive times. Granted, I'm not saying that you should reduce it and write in 10 days. Some people can't do that. Sometimes they need to let things percolate and go over time, and spacing things out makes it easier for them to write because they're allowed to think in the middle of it. Some people do like to binge write and will write that 100 hours of work in 10 days. So that's completely up to you, and that's a whole other video. So I'm gonna stop talking about that. But if we find out that writing is the longest portion for you every time you write a book, then you know where to focus your efforts on learning your craft. Do you have resources to figure out how to write better, how to get your ideas out better? If you find you're not spending a lot of time outlining, do you think that would be useful to add more time outlining to reduce your writing process? These are experiments that you can try. Every writer is different, so the results are going to vary depending on what you have. Or if you find out that your editing process takes a really, really long time, you're taking longer to edit the book than you are to write it, are there resources and things you can do to cut down your editing time to make it easier and faster for you to put out books? Maybe you don't want to do it faster, but the more you can condense your process and streamline it, the easier it is to be able to quote how long it's going to take to write a book, and that's either to a traditional publisher, or for instance, if you are an indie publisher, you kind of want to have a schedule of what's coming out next. Or you know how long things are going to take you and give up things. If somebody says they need a book by a certain time and you know what your process is, you know whether or not you can meet that deadline. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to get better in the areas where you don't think you're doing well. And maybe you are doing okay, or you can figure out that, yes, it does take me 100 hours to write a book, but it turns out that I'm not writing every day. I don't write consistently. And I'm not saying you should write every day, but if I was really in a pinch and I wanted to write a book in 3 months, I know whether or not I can do that, because even if it took me a year to write it, I know how many hours it actually took me to write that book. And if it only took me really 2 months of writing everyday hours, then I know within 3 months I can probably do it. But if there's more hours than there is time in that deadline, it's not going to happen no matter how much I want to try to get it done. And the fourth thing is, you never know if you're improving, staying consistent, or failing. So are your books taking longer to write than they used to? Are you producing the same amount of quality, or are they getting better? So if you are writing better and better books, but it's taking you longer and longer to write, it's an important thing to know. You don't want to set up a pre-order and then get your pre-orders slammed down by Amazon because you didn't meet your pre-order deadline because books are taking you longer to write than they used to. So even if you've been at this for a really, really long time, this is a way of finding out where you are in your process. Are you getting faster as a writer, and you can make promises that you are going to write more and make plans for that? Are you staying consistent and things are not improving and there are things that you do want to improve? Or like I said, are you getting slower because you're spending more time on a particular area? What is that area? Does it make sense? You can reevaluate those things, plus you can work that extra time into your plans. If it used to take you 3 months to write a book and now it's really taking you 6, then it is really, really important of knowing that, instead of just being disappointed time and time again when you're not hitting the deadlines that you had anticipated for yourself. All right, so that's my super simple tip on how to improve your writing process. Hopefully this made sense to you and is something that anybody can do, super easy to do. Like I said, you can just put a piece of paper by your bed and write it down. If you want to have more data and keep it right with you, you can put it into a spreadsheet. I love my spreadsheets as an accountant, and like Google Sheets, you can access it anywhere, put it on your phone, do whatever you need to do. But collecting that data is definitely going to be useful because you can analyze that data and figure out the patterns and things that work for you to make your writing process better and hopefully less stressful. Thank you so much for watching, and like I said, if you are not a subscriber, make sure you're hitting that subscription bar and the notification bell, and make sure to hit that thumbs up while you're down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next week. Just a heads up, I am looking at doing a series. It might just be one video, but I'm thinking it's probably going to be at least 2 about newsletters. I had some people asking about newsletters the other day because I did mention it in my brand links video. So if you want to watch that video, you can go right ahead, but I am going to do a video or a video series on newsletters, but I want to break down exactly what I want to say and make sure that I'm providing the most value to you guys. So if you are waiting on those newsletter videos, they are definitely coming in March, and I am looking forward to it. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.